All right, so I want to debunk. Like inspiring philosophy already did like a very good job on this, but I want to help debunk like the whole Halloween is a pagan holiday thing even further, right? So obviously, All Hallows Eve refers to All Saints Eve, right? Hallowed means like divinely, like hallowed means divinely sacred, right? Um, so like it refers to people who we found divinely sacred, and also God, right? So it literally says all hallowed ones, including all the ones that God ordained Eve, right? It's basically saying God ordained this day, and we're acting like, oh, God ordained the eve of this day and the day after it. That's paganism or Satan. What are we talking about there, right? Now, obviously, the way we go about Halloween could be done a little different, right? Maybe we shouldn't like have people dressing like whatever, right? Now, I'm for the freedom to do that, right? Because like here's the thing, right? I am for pushing the message on the individual. So the right to oppose Christ is always there, right? When it comes to it, right? When I say what Christ would want, I'm not saying that the government or whatever should get involved. And if you want to indulge in certain sins, it's okay, right? Because ultimately, certain sins at the end of the day are like sins of the flesh, right? What do I mean by sins of the flesh? So, sins of the flesh, like homosexuality or whatever, porn, whatever, right? They're sins of the flesh, right? Eating unhealthy is also a sin of the flesh, right? And sins of the flesh are, these could cause you to die if you continue to do them, and they aren't healthy for you, so you shouldn't. But ultimately, a sin of the flesh, um, is like not as damaging to you, right? It's damaging your flesh, not your soul, right? So it's not healthy. We should not promote it as Christians, but we should also not demonize those who do, right? And if someone does it who follows Christ, they are not automatically not Christian just because they sinned, right? This is another thing. Like I talked about like stuff in my previous video, and I'm going to keep that up, right? Following Christ requires requires showing care for fellow human beings. That's what following Christ is about, right? It's not about it's not about just faith, right? Faith it is, but faith in grace, right? While yes, you are saved by faith and grace alone, faith has to be shown. Faith and grace alone are shown through human actions, right? As in, you reveal Christ to other people by helping them, right? So you are still and anyone who is a true Christian will want to help people, right? So if you have faith in Christ, you will be driven by that faith to give other people grace, right? That's just how that works, right? Like once you feel Christ's love, you do not want to lead others astray, and so you will help them, right? And yeah, this ultimately means like not promoting sin, but also not hating people for sinning, especially sins of the flesh, right? Now, sins of the soul, on another matter, are different, right? Sins of the soul are ones that eat away at your humanity, right? These are things like sloth, gluttony, avarice, right? Like these are the sins that that basically like they damage your humanity, they damage your soul, right? Wrath, like it's like killing someone, right? Lust isn't like just willy-nilly, right? A sin of lust is viewing other people as nothing more than objects for your sexual perversion. Not, hey, I'm going into this, but like ultimately, I still view them as a person. I recognize that I find this like that's still a sin, but that's more of a sin of the flesh, right? Sin of the soul would be I view this as nothing more than a fetish, and that's all it is. I'm just fapping to this because that's all they are to me, right? Right? Like there's a difference, right? No, there is like if there's a real person behind it, and that real person's life matters, you can whatever, but ultimately you still have to care about them as a person, not just as a vice for your sins, right? Is like what I'm getting at, right? Like I guess like VTubing and stuff like avoids that a bit, but like act that's when it's like a character, right? You still care about the person behind the character, right? Just like with art, you still care about the person behind the art. So like that's the thing, right? Like I'm not saying don't ever sin. I'm saying when you sin, make sure that like you're not doing a mortal sin, right? A sin of the soul, right? So wrath, right? Don't murder anyone. Like that should be an easy one, right? But like a sloth, right? That what sloth really means is like if you are seeing someone being harmed and you do nothing, that harms your soul a bit, right? Because you're basically saying, "Yeah, I don't care about this person," right? Um, and like that's doing nothing, right? Like not like doing nothing isn't necessarily like isn't like doing nothing isn't necessarily like okay, um, you're just calling the police or something, right? Because sometimes if you don't have the ability to solve the issue, having someone else do is okay, right? You should not trust that they'll do it all the time, but ultimately, if you call the police because you see someone get assaulted, that's still within the Christ boundaries. While yes, solving it without police required would be more of a Christian act. Um, if the fact is trying to do something is ultimately more than anything, right? The fact is people aren't even trying, and that's sloth, right? Like that subway thing I talked about, right, in the last video. That was all sloth right there. People were not caring. Even the government wasn't caring, which is why I'm saying like don't trust that it will happen. But you can if you don't think you have the means to solve it. Don't blindly just try to solve every problem yourself, and then just end up dying, right? Like I'm not getting people to just rush in, like they see a criminal mugging someone and they have no actual way to prevent it. And so it just makes the problem worse, right? Just don't make two victims where there should be zero, right? So if you can't, if you're not sure, that's what that's for, right? But the idea of getting help isn't, you can get help from the government, but ultimately, if you're just having the government do it for you, that's sloth, and that's how you get those situations, right? Um, but yeah, ultimately, you should be trying to diffuse the situation yourself if you can, right? But if you're not sure, it's never wrong to get help, right? The thing is, it's never wrong to get help, right? If you are having trouble, right, you need help, right? Why would it be wrong to get help at any situation, right? That's not a Christian message, right? Me saying don't rely on the government is not saying it's never okay to ask them for help if you might need it in a situation where you're unsure you can do it, right? Do like you can solve. It means, right, you need to have like that attitude of I want to try to make things better. And only when I can't will I ask for help. And now that gets to the point of you are still trying to help someone. You are still putting effort into it, right? And then like now the onus is on them because you said I can't do this on my own. I'm giving it up to the higher power of the authorities to solve the situation because I don't think I can do this. And then that's okay. You're not being lazy then. If it still ends up being bad, it's not because you didn't do anything or you didn't try, right? Sloth is not even trying, right? It's not doing, it's not succeeding. It's not even doing the mere attempt of trying, right? And if you have abilities to do something and you're not doing any of them, you're not trying. But if you do one and it doesn't work in the end, it's something that's trying. But ultimately, also don't just be a fool and blindly rush in to solve it yourself either, right? Like, You know, they call it like 4 cent solution because at that point, like other people could have just given it would ask 4 cents too. In reality, that's not really what they should do. I mean, really, they should. Really, the most they should do to the one guy is, just top the police and tell them to do something. With that, right? Because the police are right there, but the citizens can still help the woman who's on fire. Put out her flames, right? That would be the citizens' job, I'd say, because the EMT would have to take time to get there. The citizens are just sitting there, right? So they're not going anywhere either. They have the ability to save them, while the police can make sure that the guy who is guilty of the crime doesn't get away, right? So now you're also like what you're doing is you're denigrating the government to that part, and then you are helping the person. You are helping the victim. And notice that, right? You like, if there's 10 people there, the police are catching the criminal, because there were like 13 people I saw in that video, right? Including the recorder. So there's 10 people putting out the flames and 3 people catching the guy, right? That the woman would have probably been alive even then, right? Right? Like, so what that really meant is 13 people did nothing, and that's sloth, right? Like, I guess like you could argue like the guy recording it at least like tried to like get the message out that no one's doing anything, which is, yeah, I'll give him, he's not sloth, right? But that's what like sloth is, right? Avarice, by the way, is not like liking money. It's loving money, as in putting money before helping people or God or anything like that, right? Like if you're getting money because you help people, right? That's not bad, right? So like if you're like providing a service for money and you just happen to have a lot of money because your service is really good, that's not avarice, right? Avarice is doing like what BlackRock does, where like you're basically milking assets, right? Like you're milking other companies to buy them, so you have trillions of dollars in assets in basically companies you bought when they were going bankrupt for a cheap price. And that like boosts your stocks and like your ability to continue to buy more, but it also harms other people and it doesn't provide them a service that helps them. And you ultimately also get a monopoly on how, like, this is like BlackRock is evil, right? But what BlackRock is evil for isn't having money. They're guilty because they aren't even trying to provide a service to people, right? They're not helping anyone, right? That's why I'm saying, like, Christ isn't a communist. He's very capitalist and libertarian, right? But he is also pro helping people. Like, your inaction of refusing to do anything to help people is still not Christian in these situations. But at the same time, right? That doesn't mean, like that doesn't mean like you, like that doesn't mean that he would be communist, right? Just because he wants to help people doesn't mean it's communism. Communism is helping people. Communism is the government forcing people in line, right? That's not helping, right? That's ruling, right? That's not good, right? Humans don't get to rule over other humans in Christianity. Christ does, right? So like that's the thing. The world of Christ knows no king besides God, right? So keep that in mind, right? The only king in Christianity is God Himself. Everyone else is beneath God, right? There is no authority above God, and there is no authority other than doing Christ's word beneath God, right? That is okay. So there's no kings except Christ Himself, right? But what we need, right? Like with that, right? So we're helping people, right? And we're like that's what avarice is when you're not helping people. You're just doing it for money and nothing else, right? So collecting money for helping people is not evil. Helping people, like providing a service that doesn't help anyone, and collecting money to like just keep collecting money and nothing else is evil, right? So what BlackRock is doing is evil, but like Valve providing a game service, even as something as simple as entertainment, is not evil, right? because you're providing someone of value, right? Entertainment is value, right? Like, sure, you might get some unpriced values from the medium of entertainment, depending on the story or whatever, right? But ultimately, it's providing you something of value. That entertainment is provides dopamine, and sometimes society is bad, and you need a little bit of a dopamine rush. So fictional dopamine is still good, right? Um, so yeah, right. Another one, of course, so I defined like avarice, sloth, and lust, right? Wrath is pretty easy, just outwardly trying to hurt people. Um, what's another one? Envy, right? So envy is when you focus on what other people have, not on how you earn it yourself, right? You can like that. You can be like jealous of people having more than you, but still wanted, but like use that as a way to push yourself to do more, right? So you're not like you're not feeling you know like you're not feeling like you want to take that from them. You're feeling like you want to earn that thing too, right? So that's the difference between like jealousy and envy. Jealousy is you don't you admit that some people have it better off. Envy is you want that thing that they have and you feel that they are bad for having it, rather than that you feel like, oh, that would be cool to earn myself. That would be awesome, right? I just like I always say it right. Envy is looking down on another person for having something you don't, instead of looking up to that person as a standard on something that you could work to attain yourself, right? So like it's the sin. A lot of it is, save for wrath. A lot of it is also the attitude behind, the thoughts that's themselves, right? So another one, of course, is the other one, of course, is gluttony, right? Gluttony isn't just eating; it's it's like consuming resources, right? So like you're eating a lot. Okay, maybe you get fat. You can lose the weight. Maybe it's like you just have a lot of money and like it kind of sucks. So like you just eat fat foods, right? But like gluttony is like you are like so like gluttony is like you see a baby and you take their food from them, right? It's kind of like that, right? You see like a starving orphan and you don't care. You're going to eat their food, because you can, right? That's gluttony, right? It's not eating too much, even. It's like consuming other people's ability to eat on like that. That's bad, right? Now, obviously, eating too much and getting fat is a sin of the flesh, but a sin of the like I said, a sin of the flesh won't harm your soul. A sin of the soul will, right? So gluttony is when you get the sin of the soul of gluttony is when you get to the point where you're engorging yourself at the expense of other people. If you live in a capitalist society, it's hard to do that, right? Because ultimately, there's always going to be food on the shelves, so you're not really doing anything wrong there unless it's like a kid in your own house, which is like the best part about the United States is that it's very hard to be gluttonous in here, right? Um, and then of course you have, and then of course you have like, so sloth, gluttony, envy, lust, wrath, and avarice, right? So what's left? Pride, right? So pride. A lot of people don't know what this is. So pride isn't like liking your own accomplishments. Pride is when you like when you value yourself as above others, not for your accomplishments, but for your identity, right? So like like let's say you value someone as beneath you because you're Christian, rather than you value your accomplishments as a Christian as instead, right? So you're putting yourself above other people for things about you rather than things you've actually done, right? Like a good way to say it, like this is basically like white supremacists or black supremacists. They exist too. I think they're called like hoteps, right? Like hoteps and Nazis are both very evil, right? And the reason they're evil is they value their race's accomplishments over their own. And they also value themselves as above other people, not for the accomplishments of like if Isaac Newton valued himself above people for the accomplishments of Isaac Newton, that's fine. If some like random guy from Britain values himself as other people, but like he's literally done nothing in his life to create value for other people, because of Isaac Newton, that's bad, right? Like that's where it comes from, right? Like you're basically stirring up hatred by valuing a group over yourself as a group rather than an individual. It's basically what it really is depersoning yourself, right? To put yourself up. And you should never do that, right? Like unity through Christ isn't depersoning, right? You're unifying through your care of other people, but you still value yourself as a person. You just recognize that if you serve Christ, it also means that you have to value helping other people, right? But you still value yourself. You still value your own life, right? The way I put it in the last video is like basically to do like a little movie speech about it, right? But you still value yourself. It's just you value caring about those who are suffering more than just your convenience and stuff, right? You will inconvenience yourself to help someone, but that doesn't mean you will literally like just remove everything from your life to help someone either. Like I said, if there are people who are supposed to help and maybe they just don't know, just like tapping a shoulder can even be an action to help, right? Like a good way to say it, right? If they just maybe the police officer was just fucking blind. I don't know how that would happen. Tap the shoulder, call the police, right? Say something, do something, right? But like that's the thing, right? Ultimately, people have to stand up for innocence in that case, like the case of like the subway thing. But they're not like it's not like the mere act of of it's not like the mere act of like it happening is the problem. It's the mere fact that no one at all tried to do anything to stop it, right? But anyway, I just feel like you know we could be doing more to to drive people to Christ is all really, right? But at the same time, like driving people to Christ isn't driving people to stop sinning. It's driving people to care about people, and that will eventually drive people away from sin, right? But you don't drive people from sin overnight, right? You drive people from sin slowly and gradually by showing them that there are better ways to, there are better ways to help them, help people, right? So like if they're gooning, they're probably depressed, right? So saying, oh, you can't be depressed is not, you can't do this when you're depressed is not helping them, right? What's helping them is showing them other ways to cure their depression. But people don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because that requires work and effort because they're sloths, right? That's why like John Delarose and all them are not good, right? It's not that they're anti-goon. I mean, first off, they aren't even anti-goon. Like, they all goon themselves, right? They're hypocrites as well. But, like, not only are they hypocrites they're also, like, instead of trying to slowly, stop people from gooning, their job is to, hey, let's make it so they can't. Which is not good, right? That's not how you do things through Christ. You do things, yeah, it's slowly, but it builds up a permeable, like basically an impermeable like boundary, right? Where because you are doing this in a way that boosts camaraderie, right? Now, what you're doing, like with sinners too, right, in your groups, is you're picking people up, right? So if there is sinning, you slowly lift people up. Because if we're at the bottom, if all of humanity is at the bottom, right? You forcing them to stop sinning won't stop them from sinning. It'll just like stop them from being able to sin legally, right? Which isn't good because it just like creates more problems than it solves. What you want to do is boost people up, right? So you get up a place, you keep boosting them. They get up a place, they boost you, etc., etc. You keep boosting people. and it boosts everyone up. It boosts society up, from the bottom up to the point where the top cannot tumble them anymore. Because the top is ultimately the government and like these massive like multinational institutions. So you boost people up so that those institutions can't take them down. Right? This is why division tactics are not healthy for the nation, because they ultimately put the onus on people who probably don't have a good life themselves, um, rather than actually helping people, and that's not good. So anyway, with that being said, see ya.